I was born into a military family. Spent my entire childhood moving from military post to military post. I've been serving now for 14 years as of yesterday. Graduated high school in 2007, immediately went to West Point following that. 4 years there, and then I commissioned in 2011 as a second lieutenant. The Army is literally the only lifestyle I have ever known, and I think it is incredibly difficult knowing that it is likely going to be taken away here in the coming weeks.
Erica Vandal is a major in the U.S. Army. She's risen through the ranks, deployed to Afghanistan, and was awarded a Bronze Star. She's also about to be kicked out of the military for being transgender. What has it been like to be trans in the military?
Overall, it's been a massive net positive. It made me more empathetic, more approachable, more open and honest to my soldiers. It just allowed me to be me authentically, and I think that soldiers saw and reflected that. It kind of instills that trust, I think.
One of President Trump's first executive orders after returning to office was a revival of a policy he introduced in his first term, a ban on transgender service members.
To ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, we will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone.
Joe Biden overturned the first Trump ban in 2021 and allowed trans people to serve openly and receive gender-affirming care while in the military. But now, as Trump brings back the policy, he's going even further. Not only is the military ending treatment for trans service members, it's also identifying and removing them.
We are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit.
The administration argues that trans service members pose an unnecessary burden on the armed forces, undermining unit cohesion and military readiness.
All right, good to go.
The executive order also claims that trans identity is a falsehood that conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle. Does receiving gender-affirming care impact your ability to serve?
No, gender-affirming care has zero impact on our ability to deploy, our ability to be ready, and our ability to meet standards. As far as my medicines that I'm taking, it is a shelf-stable pill I take twice a day, no different than, medication of whatever variety that thousands of other troops take daily. All the data out there shows that we're deployable. I've deployed before, during, and after my transition. Soldiers were literally on deployment and getting recalled back, suddenly being told they're non-deployable solely because of this policy.
What will you do if you're forced out of the military?
It's going to be devastating should that occur. I will lose this core component of my identity that's been with me my entire life. I will lose the single source of income right now for my family, the healthcare, the benefits associated with that, the on-post housing that we have. We'll lose everything at that point.
Major Vandal is one of 32 plaintiffs suing the Trump administration over the trans ban, arguing that it's unconstitutional and discriminates on the basis of sex and transgender status. 2 federal judges granted their request for an injunction, effectively halting the administration's plans. But in May, the Supreme Court weighed in and allowed the military to start implementing the ban while legal challenges make their way through the courts. So right now we're on Capitol Hill and we're following trans service members as they talk to members of Congress about the hardships they're about to experience as they get separated from the military. What do you hope to achieve by being on Capitol Hill today?
We're here today not necessarily to change hearts and minds, but to at least get a conversation going, to kind of plant a seed, get some gears turning, and bring humanity to this case.
I know for me in the Navy, my sailor's creed, the very last line says, "I'm committed to excellence and the fair treatment of all." Well, this is not the fair treatment of all.
I have to do twice the work to prove that I belong here, even though I've already, I've earned my commission, I've earned my spot in my unit, and now I have to come and verbalize that to complete strangers, and it's a little bit of a mind-blowing thing to try to wrap my head around.
One of the most outspoken lawmakers against the trans ban is Senator Tammy Duckworth, a combat veteran and member of the Senate Armed Services Committee.
I don't see why someone who can truly serve this country, who can meet the requirements to serve in the military, who can pass a physical test, who can pass all of the skills testing, and is already doing the job, should be kicked out of the military. I just think that's very arbitrary, and it's not what America's about.
The Trump administration makes this argument that trans service members undermine unit cohesion. As a combat veteran, how do you respond to that?
When I was sitting in my helicopter and I was bleeding to death after I'd been shot down, and an American service member came, I didn't ask if they were trans, straight, or gay. All I care about is, are you willing to carry the load? Are you qualified to do your job? And will you be willing to lay down your life to defend this country and the Constitution of this great United States? And every single one of these people have said yes to that, something that our president can't say.
How does your own experience in the military inform how you approach this issue?
Well, when I first joined the military, oftentimes I was the only woman in my unit, or one of two. When I first started flying, they didn't let women fly combat missions. When early on, when I was a cadet, I even had somebody tell me, "Oh, your uterus can't handle flying a helicopter from the vibrations." These are the
Someone said that to you?
Yes. And we know these are all just ways and bogus red herring arguments that comes up from folks who are basically trying to keep other people out.
It seems like these arguments about military readiness and certain people being able to or not being able to serve get recycled between different groups, whether it's women in combat or gays and lesbians serving openly. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going on here?
Discrimination. This is what is happening. The military oftentimes is at the forefront of a lot of the changes in our culture because it's a meritocracy. It's why I fell in love with the Army. When you have discrimination in the society, you have people targeting the military, and in fact, you should be using the military as an example because it's based on merit.
We reached out to both the Department of Defense and Republican lawmakers who support the trans ban, but received no responses. According to the Pentagon's own numbers, there are around 4,200 service members with a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is when a person's gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. That's just 0.2% of the entire military. Since 2015, the Department of Defense has spent an average of $9,000 on gender-affirming care for each trans service member. A tiny amount compared to the military health system's $61 billion annual budget.
Women's 11.
Okay. There you are.
Thank you so much.
You're gonna be number one.
Oh, I'm
that
number
okay?
one? Yeah, that's fine.
Whoa! Nice. Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh, that was good.
Game one.
Hell yeah.
Back at Fort Drum, Erica helps lead a support group for her fellow trans soldiers, all of whom are bracing for the coming purge. How did you feel when this executive order came out in January?
When I found out about the executive order, I was not only shocked, but I was just disgusted, and so were a lot of my peers. And they were confused. Why are they doing this to you guys? Why do they want this? It makes you feel sick to your stomach after the devotion, the time, the service, everything. It's an awful feeling.
Being trans has been a complete non-issue in any of the units I've served in so far. Right now I'm on my third one, so.
A non-issue until
Non-issue
now.
until recently, yeah. And it's kind of been a scramble to figure out how they're going to replace me in my specific position.
I've come to call the people in the military my family, my leadership I've looked up to, and they've been able to help me with so many different things, and never once have I received any issues at all with me being transgender.
People think of military culture as pretty conservative, and I think people watching this might be surprised that you guys haven't had issues being openly trans.
I mean, people might think of it as conservative, but at the end of the day, I think what people truly care about is your ability to meet the standards and perform at your job. So long as you're doing those things, I don't think any of those kind of identity politics matter.
The military set a deadline of June 6 for active duty service members to identify themselves as trans and leave voluntarily. They'll receive twice as much separation pay as those who choose an involuntary discharge. Are any of you considering taking the voluntary separation?
Yes, I see it as a choice of I can do it as much on my terms as possible, or I can do it on somebody else's terms. I am the sole breadwinner in my family, so that is going to cause some pretty severe impacts on my future and on my family, but I am not going to put myself in a situation where I have to try to hide who I am.
Why do you think the Trump administration is so focused on trans people in the military?
We're an easy group to lie about. When people get to know us as people instead of just as abstract concepts, they will come around on a lot of their preconceived notions of what a trans individual is. It's driven by fear and it's driven by misunderstanding.
When I informed both my chain of command and my peers and subordinates that I was likely going to be placed on administrative separation soon, there was a lot of shock. There are clear indicators that I'm one of the top performing officers within my unit. Why am I being removed for this part of my identity when I continue to meet standards? The Army has invested decades of training into us, millions of dollars, and I think the forced purge and removal of transgender service members is going to be very harmful to overall military readiness.